Sponsored by Surfshark. To paraphrase the late Anthony Bourdain, sometimes I just need that old-time flavor. 20 years ago, with the help of some hot star power, Motorola reshaped humdrum mobile phones into design icons with the first Razr. And it's spent the past 5 years reformulating that reinvention into this. A playful pocketable, clad in all the colors of the rainbow the bigger manufacturers keep frustratingly shying further away from. It's no exaggeration to call the new Razr 2 phones in one, a high-end Android flagship and a tiny minimalist phone, blended into a single foldable that reminds us that, oh right, technology should be fun. I'm Michael Fisher. This is the 2024 Razr and Razr Plus, and they are the antidote to every other phone. That might seem like a lot of bombast for a pair of products that look a lot like last year's, but it's that very consistency that makes the cheaper of these so exciting. I'm going to start with that more affordable model, which I will call the Minus. But even if you're just here for the Plus, stay with me, because a lot of these features are shared across tiers. Whereas $700 in 2023 got you a Razr that you had to open to use, this year the same price gets you, well, basically last year's flagship. Motorola took the 3.6-inch cover screen from the old Razr Plus and stuck it into a new casing with a hinge that's 30% smaller. Its mechanical action is also much smoother than the lumpy hinge of last year, making the phone easier to open one-handed and better able to maintain specific postures, like the new desk pose. That hinge is common to both models, by the way. Now, last year, some of those edge cases, like desk pose, felt like glorified hacks, but Motorola has polished them as it leans harder into its cover screen advantage, unlocking a ton of customization options. Actually, maybe too many. Both new Razrs also get a revised set of home screens with quick shortcuts, more widget panels, and the overdue always-on display. Crucially, you can still run any app you want on the cover screen for those cases where opening the phone is impractical, or you're trying to cut back on doom scrolling, or you just want to save on battery, since a smaller screen equals smaller power draw. Oh, and for those apps that don't like landscape, you can now rotate the phone to run them on their side. More on this when we get to the Plus, but it's encouraging to see Motorola continue to democratize foldables. This robust a feature set, available at $699, makes it much harder to recommend any of those budget flip phones that started appearing earlier this year. Just be sure you're happy with the feature set being promised at purchase. If you always want your phone to have the latest build of Android, a Razr is not going to be your ride. Samsung updated its flip phones to Android 14 in December, and Oppo did the same in April. But as this video hits the feeds, last year's Razrs still languish on Android 13. Motorola still promises 3 platform updates over the product lifetime, just don't expect them to arrive promptly. Anyway, the new ones do come with Android 14, freshened up by Motorola's custom UX. These notification bubbles on the lock screen are more than indicators. You can tap them to preview your messages. The gestures that let you twist into the camera and chop to the flashlight are as handy as ever, and now the phones wake up when you reach for them, in a flashback to one of my favorite features from the decade-old Moto X. When you're on a phone call, the cover screen doesn't just show the Motorola logo, that insignia keeps its orientation relative to the ground. When you're playing a song or a podcast, you've got fun options for how you want that playback visualized, which takes me right back to the days of Winamp. Someone had a lot of fun with this stuff, and it really whips the llama. Now, the cover screen still has room for improvement. It takes a bit to learn to navigate because it doesn't quite mirror the standard Android layout, and there's probably one layer too many between the always-on screen, the sleep screen, the lock screen, and the home screen. Also, there are occasional stutters. That new media controller is very laggy. And because of the way Android works, the app switcher on the cover doesn't mirror the one on the main display. But once you get the hang of it, it's amazing how often you don't have to open the phone. Ultimately, Motorola has built a really good mini phone into the front of its foldable. It seems to me that its task for the next one will be to make it a great one. Hopefully, we'll see some tweaks when the anticipated end-of-summer update lands with Moto AI features in tow. Stay tuned to see if this flavor of AI is actually worth the hype. Personally, I'm not holding my breath. All that is, of course, only more true on the flagship Razr Plus, which deletes the forehead bezel to achieve a full 4-inch cover screen. Operationally, this doesn't make much difference. Everything works pretty much the same as it does on the Minus, but it certainly does a good job of visually distinguishing the more expensive model. So too do the color and finish options. While the cover is Gorilla Glass Victus, Motorola wisely avoided glass on the backplate this year, instead offering a mix of imitation leather, suede, and even felt-like finishes, depending on color and trim. For the Plus, you've got spring green, you've got midnight blue with the racing stripe. Motorola's partnership with Pantone means peach fuzz is still around. And to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Razr, hot pink has made its triumphant return, alongside Paris Hilton, who helped make it famous way back when. I was able to get some footage of that original influencer on my own hot pink review sample at Motorola's launch event here in Brooklyn. But before we get to the cameras, I do want to talk about something more crucial: reliability. I broke my Razr 2023 review unit by accidentally dropping it while it was open. And that was my fault. But the replacement sample Motorola was kind enough to send me developed a crack on its screen protector after 7 months of use. A pretty common issue reported on the Razr subreddit. Well, back in March, I took the opportunity to see what it might be like to get that Razr repaired. I called Motorola posing as a normal customer, and its support team set up an appointment for me at my local U-Break iFix. Well, when I arrived, they had no idea what I was talking about. A fact that, given the current state of customer service for literally anything in 2024, I was, of course, expecting. They eventually found me in the system, but it turns out Motorola had made the wrong type of reservation, which means U-Break iFix had never ordered the replacement screen protector it would need for the repair, since it doesn't keep them in stock. And that's obviously not ideal. And frankly, I don't expect the repair process to get any smoother for foldables until companies really make a genuine effort in this regard. But there is a small silver lining. Motorola says its hinge redesign should, quote, virtually eliminate cracking or peeling of the display by allowing for an improved bending radius to reduce stress when folding. Additionally, a floating hinge plate under the display ensures minimal creasing of the screen even with extended use, unquote. Also, the Razr screen protector is new for both models this year, with a design that no longer includes a notch for the selfie shooter, removing the temptation to peel it off. The other big change to the Razr Plus is also my least favorite. We'll hang with Paris, watch some sunsets, and eat some hot dogs, all courtesy of these very different cameras. But first, let's pay some bills. Privacy is a big deal these days. And if you're looking for a way to protect that privacy, consider my sponsor, Surfshark. With Surfshark, you get a lot more than just a VPN. CleanWeb automatically blocks more than 1 million malicious websites, phishing methods, and other threats, while Alternative ID builds you a brand new online identity, so you can stop giving away your phone number or email every time you register on a new website. And with multi-hop, you can put more than one server between you and your destination for even greater privacy and security. Surfshark doesn't log its users' activity, a claim recently verified by a third-party audit from Deloitte, and it's also converted all of its infrastructure to diskless servers. That means that any information that would usually stay on hard drives is automatically deleted whenever those servers are turned off. Secure your privacy with Surfshark. Visit the link in the description and use coupon code MrMobile for an extra 4 months. Thanks to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. For 2 weeks, I took both Razrs everywhere. The Minus was my companion for a New Jersey road trip that heavily taxed its 4,200 mAh battery with 3 hours of turn-by-turn directions, culminating in the reason I kicked off this video with a couple of Bourdain quotes. I visited his favorite hot dog joint, Hiram's, where I learned 3 things. First, deep frying is the absolute best way to cook a hot dog. I can't believe it took me 41 years on this planet to learn that. Second, due to the difference in chipsets, the Minus can't keep a preview on the cover screen if you're shooting video in 4K, while the Plus can. And third, when you are as close to the traffic as you are willing to get,
but you still are trying to get a pretty okay shot, well, that's when it's useful to have ultra wide. Bummer.
Yeah. While the more affordable Razr retains the wide-angle secondary camera, the Razr Plus swapped that ultra-wide for a telephoto. To add insult to injury, it's a dinky 2x lens, meant not to add any true reach, but to cater to people who take a lot of portrait photos. A demographic Motorola's data tells it is well represented in the Razr customer base. Now, while that's probably true, I still hate this decision. Again, the Razrs came with me everywhere. To a dive bar in Red Hook, whose door I've been meaning to darken for over a year. On a quick overnight to my ancestral homeland out in the country on eastern Long Island. And for the kind of diverse photo opportunities only New York City can give you. The kind that find you rushing for a train at Grand Central in the morning, attending a launch party for Verizon's new branding in the East Village in the afternoon, and nursing a cold beer back in Brooklyn while watching the sunset behind the Statue of Liberty that evening. And in each of those situations, I found the ultra-wide camera of the Razr Minus was, or would have been, more useful. Meanwhile, the 2x telephoto of the Razr Plus gave marginal, if any, benefits to the zoom shots that I take far more often than portraits. Now, just as noticeable, and I think even more interesting, is the profoundly different way these cameras see the world. See, the Razr is powered by a MediaTek 7300X, while the Razr Plus runs on a Snapdragon 8S Gen 3 from Qualcomm. In day-to-day operation, that doesn't make much difference, aside from slightly slower app opening and camera switching times on the Minus. But image processing is another story entirely. Often, I prefer the harsher, more opinionated contrast of the Plus, even though it tends to crush the shadows. The Minus also imparts a tiny bit of that 2012-era Instagram faux HDR aesthetic. But these results aren't consistent. Sometimes the phones defy their usual trends, and it's the Minus giving more contrast. On occasion, I prefer the added drama the Razr Minus's higher saturation brings to the shot, at least at certain zoom settings. Punch back out to the wide angle of Grand Central, and I go back to preferring the Plus. Sometimes it's the Plus that does a better job of evoking the saturated colors of summertime, and sometimes it's the Minus. I think you get it. Fortunately, I find most photos from either of these usable without much tweaking after the fact. And crucially, Motorola has also fixed the problems that led to last year's catastrophic camcorder failings. No longer does every video shot on a Razr start with 3 seconds of stuttering and frame drops, and no longer does it make my skin tone look like that of a Soong-type Android. Also, the new camcorder is ridiculously fun. You bend the phone in half and turn it sideways, and it automatically starts recording video. I know, it looks ridiculous. It sounds like a gimmick, and maybe it is, but I actually love it. Especially with the thumb pad that serves as a zoom. It's great. Now, is the Razr going to be my first choice for shooting mobile video? No. But no longer is it my last choice. The rest of the story is a study in small but significant refinements. I didn't notice anything particularly notable about call quality or speakerphone performance. For endurance, each of these is a full-day phone, though we are talking more like 12 hours if you're really pushing it, like on that 3-hour GPS day. Also note that the Plus has a slightly smaller battery at 4,000 mAh versus 4,200 on the Minus. But whenever I found myself wondering if I'd make it to bedtime, I just closed the phone and did whatever I was gonna do on the cover screen instead. And suddenly, the battery felt like it was gonna last forever. There's faster wired and wireless charging for each model this year, and reverse wireless on the Plus. Water resistance has been boosted to IPX8, that means full immersion, and it also means there's no dust rating. But Motorola says the new hinge design offers a 50% reduction in the gap where dust could enter, and there are also now integrated brush filters to guard against any that does get in. It's basically the same approach Samsung takes with its IPX8 Galaxy foldables, and it's been a long time since I've seen a dust-related death on any of those, so I'm not losing sleep over it. Now, Motorola failing to match the finish of the inside of the A on the Razr wordmark with the rest of the phone, at least on the review units we got, that will cost me some winks. It all boils down to an upgrade that's less iterative than I expected, at prices that make even more sense than they did last year. That's not even counting the sales that Motorola runs seemingly all year long. Foldables still aren't for everyone. You've still got to treat them more gently, and you're still making a camera sacrifice. But damned if these aren't the most fun, pocketable, and innovative phones on Android right now. In a world of risk-averse competitors reheating last year's smartphones over and over again, Motorola continues to be the breath of fresh air I need to stay excited about this category, even after all these years. This video was produced with 2 review samples provided by Motorola, which also provided transportation, food, and drink at the Razr 2024 launch party in Brooklyn. Nevertheless, I never give the subject of any of my reviews any editorial input into those reviews. That includes copy approval rights or early previews, and I did not accept compensation in exchange for this coverage. Speaking of which, it's another hot foldable summer, and by the time this goes live, I'll be in Paris to cover Samsung's Razr rebuttal. Make sure you're following me on social at Captain2Phones to keep up with the latest. Till next time, from Michael Fisher, thanks for watching. And stay mobile, my friends.